Hello, my friends, and welcome back to 3DS Cast, the podcast about the Nintendo 3DS handheld line of gaming machines. And now I'm probably gonna start talking about DS because I just got a DSi XL, y'all. Oh my god, it's so exciting! I love it. Did you hear that? Did you hear that click? Did you hear it right there? We're not here to talk about that. I'm just excited about it. We're not here to talk about that. We have a guest again. My God, we're getting guests, y'all. This is exciting. Joining us from, you're the UK, right? You're in the UK, am I remembering that correctly? All right. Joining us from the UK is dwalker109, the developer of Cloudpoint. Now, if you're not sure what Cloudpoint is, do you want to explain it, dwalker, or do you want me to?
I'm happy to explain it.
Go for it.
I will do that. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me, Brian. Appreciate it. It's exciting to be here talking to you.
It's a delight.
Cloudpoint is homebrew for the 3DS line of consoles, so 3DS, 2DS, etc., etc. And it's a cloud sync tool for your save games and your ext data, which is a sort of a specific facet of how save games work on the 3DS. But yeah, it's a cloud sync tool for those things. So if you've got a Switch or something like that, you probably know that you can save your game, and if you've got Switch Online, it will be there on your other console when you go to use it, if you use more than one system. And that's what Cloudpoint enables, essentially. It's not quite as slick as a built-in system like that, but fundamentally it lets you have a number of different consoles and use all of them to play all of your games without losing progress, which is something I certainly needed and now have, and so do you. So yeah, that's Cloudpoint.
And folks, I gotta tell you, I discovered this later in my 3DS homebrew journey, and once I discovered it, I was elated because I mean, I'm gonna bring up Checkpoint. I'm sure that was an inspiration.
Absolutely,
we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. And Checkpoint, if you're unaware, saves your saves to your SD card, and then it's up to you to get them off your SD card and upload them to wherever, Dropbox, Mega, whatever you use. So Checkpoint is wonderful, but it's a little more involved if you want to do that. But you should do that, by the way, if you have a mod of 3DS, get Checkpoint, back up your saves, seriously, because these things fail, these things break, and you never know. You never know what's going to happen. So I implore you, get Checkpoint, get Cloudpoint, regularly back up your saves. A little bit of effort, but it's so worth it, because I'll just tell you a story. When I transferred my system from my original 3DS XL to the new one, I thought all the saves would come over when they were built into the game and everything, and on the SD card and blah, blah, blah. So I thought they would all come over. They don't. Yeah. So I lost, like, I was playing like a yokai game, and I lost like 5 hours because I hadn't backed it up in about a week. So back up your saves regularly, folks. If not daily, weekly. At the very least, back them up weekly. Checkpoint, Cloudpoint, do them both, because you got what do they say? 2 is 1 and 1 is none. Seriously, that's the rule that you should do with your saves, because you don't want to play Pokemon Black for 800 hours and then go, oh no, I lost everything. Yeah, back up everything. The nice thing about DS games is, those are unencrypted, so you can just copy them. You don't need a special thing for that. That's nice. So anyway, Cloudpoint is just a wonderful service, especially when I got a 2DS as well. So now I can sync them between the two. Mm-hmm. So because we talked about this a little bit before, but I'm dying to know, how did your journey with the 3DS get started?
With the 3DS specifically, I came to it really late. So I've been playing games since the 1980s. Been playing for a long time, and I've had pretty much every Nintendo and most like Sony systems and most Sega systems since that time. Super Nintendo, N64, GameCube, Wii U, all of that, and Switch now, and I use all of those and I love them. But for whatever reason, and I don't fully understand why, I just never had a 3DS. I had a DS, I had Game Boys, but I never had a 3DS. I just kind of skipped it. I don't know why. I think a part of it might have been related to how how kind of oppressive Nintendo's online stance was at the time. They tied
Mm.
your purchases to a single console, which I knew from having a Wii. And I always found that extremely frustrating and difficult to accept, I guess.
Uh,
Um,
it's so frustrating. Let me just jump in for a second.
yeah, yeah,
Nintendo does like so many really wonderful things and so many frustrating things, like what you just said. It's like,
yeah.
what are you doing? I love you, but I can't fully love you because I hate some of the things you do. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, yeah, they've got a lot better now. The Switch, I would say, has a pretty good online setup. You can have many switches, and you can sync saves and play your
Don't you have
games
to?
on them and share them. You do have to pay for it.
I was about to ask. You have to pay for that though, which
Yeah, yeah,
is
yep,
it's not a ton of money if you're really invested. It's like $60 a year or
yeah,
six. If you're really invested, that's worth it. But the fact that you have to pay for it is a little bit annoying.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, they certainly could afford to do it for free.
oh, absolutely. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
they
But
don't, and they
I get it. They're a capitalist company. Anyway,
exactly.
so
So
yeah,
yeah,
I go ahead. Go ahead.
I came to it late. I didn't have one. Um, and then last year, sort of last summer, I think I'd seen one of the sort of many Chinese emulation consoles appear. Not the AYN Thor, which is kind of the big one that people are aware of now. There was another one that came out a little bit before that, and it just kind of piqued my interest in DS and 3DS really. And pretty quickly, I'd bought myself a DS. I think I bought a DSi XL. Bought one of those, and imported a new 3DS XL from Japan. And I just got completely obsessed with them. I mean, I think you can probably relate, Brian.
Oh
But
my God.
it
Oh
just got its
yes.
hooks into me.
I I I've been a PC gamer for decades,
Mm,
since the 80s, like you said. And I don't think PC gaming has ever gotten its hooks into me like PS gaming has. I joined Instagram for this, y'all. And I would never done that before. I never, but I joined Instagram to find more 3DS content. I've never done that before. Like, what am I doing? So,
it's
yeah,
devotion.
so
That is
there's
devotion.
something, there's something, if I may interject, there's just something that's so easily to love about these little machines.
Hmm.
It's so easy to fall in love with them. Like Nintendo did something so right with the DS and the 3DS line, that I don't fully understand, but they just like I think it's because my guess is that these machines have more soul and personality than something more modern, and maybe even things before it, like the GBA had personality, and so did the Game Boy and all them. But I think because they were able to mix online and offline and whatnot, they really just peaked with these
Hmm.
in a lot of ways. Um, that's why it's so easy to get obsessed with them, like you
Hmm.
said you have.
Yeah,
Anyway, please continue.
they're certainly a little more fully featured than the earlier systems, uh, and for me that helps me to kind of, it's a system that actually doesn't feel retro to me. 3DS, it's obviously a bit older, and graphically it doesn't compete with modern systems, but it doesn't bother me. Like, I like the charm, I like the low power of them, I like the economy that it requires to make games for, and so you get everything you want. Like, you can have all your games dumped onto the system, you can carry them with you, you can now sync saves, you can do all that stuff. So they're a very usable system. I carry a 3DS around with me all the time because
Yeah,
it's extremely
same.
usable. I don't carry a DS around all the time
No.
because I have to carry cartridges and I don't want to lose them and all that kind of stuff. So it's just eminently usable. And I think for me, that's one of the reasons that it just really hooked me. And yeah, I started with one last year, and I'm somewhat embarrassed to say I probably now own something like 20 or 30 3DSs, which
Holy
is,
moly.
I know, it's insane.
You're
Um,
part of the problem. You're part of the
I
reason the
know, I
prices are
know,
going up.
I
You're
know. I'm
God
somewhat
damn it.
reticent to admit it because I think that people definitely do see my sort of buying behavior as hoarding. Um, but I consider it to be preservation and collection.
Oh,
Plus, I
agreed.
make a
Agreed.
sync homebrew, so I need tons of them for testing, and that's how I
I
sleep
was
at night, giving something back,
I
which
was just about to
requires,
say.
yeah.
I was just about to
Do I
say
need
you
30 to test this? Absolutely not. But I have them, so So sue me, I guess.
Oh, and I
Yeah.
want to interject and say that you can mod a DSi, which I have done, and you could dump your games onto that too on the SD card, so you don't need to carry all the cartridges.
Yes, that's very true. That's very true. I think the part of it that for me makes it less livable is that you
Mhm.
can't really sync your saves with them. Now,
No,
I have
no.
looked at this myself. Actually, writing homebrew for a DSi is really hard. They're really, really low powered. They don't really have an operating system, and there just isn't the ecosystem that makes it for us. For a software engineer, it's not that hard to make 3DS homebrew, but for DS, it's absolutely is.
Oh
Um,
wow.
so yeah, that's one of the reasons that it's slightly less livable for me. But I do have a few. I have quite a few DSIs as well, and I play lots of games on those too. But they're cartridges. Plug a cartridge in, take a cartridge out,
Fair
which
enough.
isn't always the case with these. So yeah, here we are. I bought one last year. Now I unloaded them, and
Oh,
I still use it every day. I think they're great.
I gotta say that's an amazing journey within 1 year. Uh,
Yeah, it is, isn't
I I
it?
got to ask a slightly personal question because you
Yeah,
said you had a family. How do they feel about you having 3DS?
they're cool with it. Like
Oh,
my
okay.
son,
Okay.
I mean my son has a DS. He has like a Pokeball 2DS XL,
Ooh.
which is a pretty nice system, and he's lucky to have it. Um, he sometimes bemoans it, and he says, "Oh, you've got so many of these. Can I have that one? Can I have your pink new 3DS XL from Japan? Can I have your Super Nintendo new 3DS?" Like, no,
Oh
you
no,
can't
no,
have those.
no. Not
They are
no, no,
locked
no.
in a they're museum pieces pretty much. I mean, a lot of this is collection stuff. I don't play on all these systems. Many do get played, but not all of them. And my wife is very supportive. She understands, and it's they're, as you know, they're not cheap systems, but in the grand
No.
scheme of things, for somebody like me in my sort of, I'm middle aged and gainfully employed, and uh, and everything's looked after, and it's not the most expensive hobby I could have. If I was into
No,
football,
that's
like
true.
soccer, if you will,
Oh God, you've been
I'd
oh
be paying a
God,
lot
yeah.
on season tickets and things like that. So compared to that, it's pretty minimal, and I often buy systems and fix them. I get a lot of my systems by buying
Oh,
broken ones and fixing them and stuff like that. It's another thing
oh,
I've got
that's
into this
cool.
last year. I just kind of took an interest in it because I think if you play these old systems, they do need maintenance, and with a few exceptions, you won't get any support from Nintendo on that. So you really need to kind of figure out how to fix them. And yeah, I've taken them apart and cleaned them
Oh
and
wow.
replaced screens and stuff, and it's good fun.
It would
It's
it would
frustrating,
not
but
be
it's good
fun.
fun.
It would not be fun for me. I don't have the patience. I know myself. I know I don't have the patience for it. Like I won't even build my own PCs anymore
Yeah,
because I don't have the patience for it. So
patience is definitely what it is. There's not really
I
much
don't have it.
skill involved, but patience, absolutely.
I don't have it. I know I don't have it. So I've seen videos of people taking the 3DS apart. It looks like a gosh darn nightmare in there. So I'm like, no, thank you. I don't
Can
like
be.
taking the back. I don't like taking the back plate off to change the battery. I don't like doing that.
No, no,
So
no.
opening it up further, like if my joystick broke, I'd be like, okay, who do I find to repair this? Who do I pay? I will pay someone to do it so I don't have to. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, well, if you ever get a broken joystick, hit me up, and we'll see what we can do. Although we
Oh,
probably do live about 8,000 miles apart, so that might be
yeah,
challenging. But
that might be a challenge, yeah. Because I'm in California, you're in the
oh
UK.
wow,
Yeah, so we're
that's a
very far
long
apart.
way. That's a long way.
That's a very long way, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, so that's a I just want to interject that is a lovely journey that you're on. I'm so happy that your family is supportive of it.
thank you.
Like, I'm just going to be honest. I love my wife, but no, she's not unsupportive. But if I was starting to buy that many 3DSs, we would have a serious talk.
Yeah,
We would have a
yeah.
very serious talk because we're trying to save to buy a house, which in California is outrageously expensive. And so she'd be like, look, do you want a house or do you want 30 3DSs? I'd be like, can I think about it?
It's not a snap decision, is it? You have to give it some
It's,
thought.
that's a toughie. And she'd be like, why is it tough? I'm like, let me get back to you. So I'm not saying I love my wife. She's not unsupportive, but at the same time, she would not have the level of patience that yours does. So
Yeah,
good on you.
I can
but,
understand that for sure, and I love my wife
but
too, and uh,
yeah,
and and I
and
appreciate her
yeah,
tolerating my obsession
Oh
with
yeah.
it for sure.
Oh yeah. Same here. Same here. I mean, she tolerated me buying a DSi XL because it was very affordable. I found one for a very good price. So, so she's supportive of the hobby, especially now that I'm making a podcast about it. So I'm doing something with it, you know. So
Absolutely.
she's even more supportive now. But at the same time, I could not buy 30 of them. So I'm jealous. I'm going to admit I'm a bit jealous. That's amazing. I kind of, that's astounding. Good on you. And I'm not serious that you're part of the problem. I mean, I'd rather these be in homes where people are going to take care of them and preserve them rather than being beaten up by a child or something. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I'd rather them find a good home than not. So it sounds like they're in a good home. So I'd much rather prefer that where you're taking care of them and like you said, you're cleaning them and maintaining
absolutely.
them. I'd much rather
It's
have that. Yeah.
it's worth remembering that we and this is a bit of an aside, but there's definitely a feeling sometimes that these things are like extremely rare and extremely hard to find. In fact, they're not. Nintendo made tens of millions of these things, and they're not that old. They're at their oldest they're 15 years old, and at their newest they're 5 years old. So, well, almost 5 years old. So there are many millions of them out there. In Japan, there are huge numbers of them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, supply and demand means that they're certainly not always available for the price that people would want and the price they think they should be because they're not the latest and greatest. But ultimately, there are plenty out there. And so
Yeah.
if you want one, people, just save up, find a
Yeah.
deal. They're not always as expensive
Nope.
as you think, and you can do it.
And I always tell people, friends, ask friends and family,
Hmm.
because I got both my new 3DS XL and my new and the DSi XL through forums I'm on because I know people.
Yeah,
I got the Galaxy 3DS XL for $200, which is in this economy amazing. I got the DSi for 50,
that's
which
good.
again, yeah, exactly, because I know people. So, friends, if you're looking for one of these things, and I implore you, if you're listening to this, of course, you either are looking for one or you have one or you want another one, ask friends and family. You never know who might have one in a drawer from their childhood that they're not using anymore, you know, and they're like, okay, I could stand to have a couple $100 because I'm not using this anymore, you know. You never know. So it doesn't hurt to ask on your social medias. And if you're on forums and other online communities like Discord, definitely ask because you never know when someone might have one they're just not using and willing to part with, you know? So
Yeah,
it's definitely worth it. Uh, oh God, I could talk about collecting and I keep track of prices to help other people find them, like on Discords and whatnot. And I keep track of the Reddit communities if someone's selling one and I post about that. So like I want people to own these things. Like I feel like I've become an evangelist. Like my son, have you heard the good news about the 3DS? I'm going door,
preach,
I'm,
preach.
I'm going door to door with a Pokemon strategy guide in one hand and a 3DS in the other. Ma- Madam, have you heard the good word about the
Amazing.
3D? And I'm wearing a I love my 3DS t-shirt.
Absolutely.
That would be a fun Instagram thing now that I think of it. The
You
3DS
should do it.
evangelist.
You
I
should
should
do it.
totally I should figure out how to do that. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I had a friend over. I know we're going on tangents, folks. If you listen to my other podcast, you know the tangents are a regular thing. I had a friend over the other day, and she's like, "I'm so tired of playing games on my iPad. The communities are so toxic." I'm like, "Can you afford a 2DS? Let me show you my 2DS. It's the most affordable way to jump into the ecosystem, and you can play literally thousands of games, and the games are mostly good. Let me show you."
Absolutely.
Because I try to explain to people the library of these things are just astounding.
Hmm.
Oh my God. So again, worth owning, worth modding, worth collecting because there's really nothing else like these things. There's really nothing else, no other. I mean, yeah, you can get an AYN Thor, but it's not the same. You don't,
Yeah.
you don't have the little presents when you open up, get a new game. You don't have Street Pass, which still works. Um, you don't have all these lovely little things and the Mii's and everything that these systems have. So please get one. Anyway, back to Cloudpoint. So you've only been doing this for a year, this 3DS thing.
Mhm.
What inspired you? How did the journey of Cloudpoint begin?
That's a great question. Um, so, as I've already said, I got into 3DS in a big way, and I ended up owning a number of them quite quickly. And I think originally my plan was, well, I'll just play different games on each of these systems. But the way that I tend to use these things, I found is, and this is true of most systems, I quite like to have like a really nice one at home, like a really mint new 3DS XL that I play when I'm at home, and maybe I want to have like a battered old original 3DS that I stick in my pocket and allow to just not baby it. And and I really found it frustrating that I couldn't do that because I'd be playing, I don't know, Kirby Planet Robobot on my system, and I wanted to play that when I'm waiting for my son to do his swimming, but I can't because my save's on the other system, etc., etc. So I started looking around, thinking, well, there must be some homebrew for this. Like Checkpoint exists, there must be something that does it in a cloud fashion, and there just wasn't. Um, there are various attempts at it. Like there are a few of the cloud sync things out there, but all of them are unfinished or require you to basically export from Checkpoint, which then syncs somewhere, which isn't what I wanted. I just wanted something where I could fire it up, press a button, and it would do it, and it would figure out, do I need to upload a save? Do I need to download a save? All of that kind of stuff. Nothing existed, so I reasoned from Checkpoint that it's doable because fundamentally, what Checkpoint is doing is kind of, the raw basis of what I need to do. You need to be able to read saves and write saves to the system. So I knew it could be done, and so I started looking at how it was done, and that led me to things like DevKit Pro, which is I think Soru mentioned this previously on your podcast, but it's a community maintained um, framework for writing and compiling for 3DS. So I started looking at that, and that one thing led to another, and I figured out all the things I needed to figure out. It's definitely been a challenge. Developing software for something like a 3DS has some very unique challenges, and it's a bit different to the sorts of software that I write in my professional career. I write software to do with the internet, like websites, web servers, things like that. But um, 3DS is different. So yeah, I relished the challenge and got into it, and fairly quickly had a system that could read and write saves, um, and then went from there. Really made the user interface and figured out how that should work and all the challenges that come up. I had to write a server to sit on the other end of it to kind of do the database side of things. So lots of little challenges, but taken one at a time in small pieces. They're not completely unfamiliar to me because I've been doing software professionally for a while. And yeah, and I had a version ready to release. In fact, I think I released the first public version on my birthday, if
Oh,
I recall. Yeah, it didn't plan it that way, but um, I had the afternoon off work and it was ready to go. So I just released it on my birthday, which I quite enjoyed. It
aw.
made me smile to do that. So yeah, went out my birthday, and it's been downloaded thousands of times, and we've got hundreds of monthly users, well, thousands of monthly users at this point, fairly quickly, which is quite nice to see, quite encouraging, I guess. I made the software for me. Like, if only I used it, that would be enough for me because I genuinely find it useful. But the fact that other people use it and enjoy it and suggest things we might do, and also report bugs. Those things are all like super important. In fact, that's how Brian and I met. Brian made a bug report raised an issue on the GitHub, and we went from there really. So yeah, having people actually use the software and say, "Hey, this thing didn't work," has allowed me to make some pretty major improvements. Actually, you know, there were there are thousands of 3DS games. I mean, we've this has been touched on already. There are so many games that, in some cases, some of those games do things with saves that are surprising. And and I certainly haven't tested all the games, far from it. So people try a game, they say, hey, this doesn't work, and I can look at it, and it usually leads to a systemic improvement that I can make, which makes everything so much better. So yeah,
Well,
that's how it came to be.
I wanted to touch on two things. The first, the most recent one you said is some games save, have some weird ways of saving things, I believe.
Yes.
Do you have an example of that? I'm very curious because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I'm just learning about X data. I want to talk about that too.
Mhm.
So or X data, yeah. So what's like an example of a game that uses a quirky, let's say quirky save system?
Yeah, there's a number of different quirks with the saves, really. Broadly speaking, most games are straightforward in that they have kind of a save system, which, I mean, on a technical level, 3DS games were distributed on cartridges, and if run from a cartridge, the game would save your progress to the cartridge. Um, if run from an SD card, i.e., if they were actually downloaded from the eShop and run on the system, they would save the data to the SD card. But the game doesn't actually know that. The game just saves its data. So the whole kind of container format for saving data is not just files on a disk like you might find on a PC game. It's a bit more complicated than that. But if everything's simple, they work like that, and you can just export the save and it's fine. And some games use ext data, X data, which is like an extra bit of save space that a game can use, and that always lives on the SD card. Whether you're playing a cartridge game or a download game, the X data is always on the SD card, and that's used for often for extra stuff, which is big, like maybe downloading. Like some games might download movies and stuff, or some games might save your replay data to X data, or it might use X data to share save
Hmm.
state between games. Like the Pokemon games, there's often two versions of them. They will create some X data, which is used by both, like Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. They share it, so that's kind of
Hmm.
the lay of the land, broadly speaking. But some games just do things differently. Like for example, Super Mario Maker. Um, that one creates save data and X data, but if you use your cartridge in a different console, it wipes your save data, even though it's on the cartridge. Now, this is
Oh,
an anti-cheating mechanism that they had when the game first came out, but it essentially like records some sort of checksum data, we call it, about the system it's been used on. And if you use it elsewhere, it's not going to work. And that also means that if you sync your save with a tool like Cloudpoint, it's not going to work on another system. Now, I haven't solved that one. I will actually need to write some code which is game specific, which will essentially,
oh
when
wow.
you're syncing that game, figure out that it's come from a different system and kind of rewrite the checksum stuff so that it works. I know it's possible because there are tools that will rewrite the checksums for you to allow you to modify saves. So I know it can be done. I just haven't got around to it. So that's an example of a game with a weird save format. Um, there are other games like Terraria, which you may be familiar with. It's like a side-scrolling
Hmm.
Minecraft type game.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
that that creates like huge 32 megabyte X data when you run the game, and trying to sync 32 megabytes on a 3DS is quite hard because they're very 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 slow network devices.
Yeah.
You'd be
Yeah.
amazed how. I mean, you probably you may have already seen how slow it is if you're trying to do an update or something, but they're very slow by modern standards. So
Yeah.
actually, kind of
Even the new
making
one with
things,
the upgraded
yeah,
Wi-Fi chip is still very slow.
it's still very slow. It's a lot faster. Like it's about 3 times as quick for network calls than the originals, but it's
Mhm.
still like dog slow, to be honest.
Yeah,
So
it really is. Yeah.
you can't just brute force this and like just tell the system to whack 32 megabytes over the network, which you could do that on a PC. You wouldn't notice it. 32 megs would go in a heartbeat, but on a 3DS that would take minutes to do. So you have to do some reasonably clever stuff about deduplicating it and only uploading stuff that's changed and things like that. Um, so yeah, they're examples of saves that are quirky and weird. And then another final example I'll give is the game Puzzle and Dragons, which the Super Mario edition of that is essentially two games in one. So the game like
What?
loads to a launcher, and then you pick which game you want to play.
Oh
And when you
boy.
pick a game, it sets up the save data at that point. And if you've only played one of them, the save data is kind of broken. So if you try and sync it, it doesn't work. So again, you have to try and detect that and deal with it. And yeah, it's a really quite a challenging ecosystem to work in because it doesn't really work. It doesn't work that well. A lot of the APIs that you use to query stuff, you have to work around weirdness, um, and solve problems. And these are things that other tools have done. Like I certainly have looked with great interest at the source code of Checkpoint to figure out how things could be done and things they've done to work around issues. And I mean, a lot of their code even goes back to the PKSM save manager. So
Oh.
open source
Oh.
has made this easier, but fundamentally, I've had to re-implement all of this because these tools are written in C, which is the language of the 3DS really, and the language of most game development. Whereas Cloudpoint is written in Rust, which is a more modern systems programming language, which has really good support on 3DS. That's a brilliant project. Um, you know, I, I should find the link to the project to make sure that I reference it properly. But there is a brilliant project which gives you the ability to write Rust code, and have it compile for a 3DS. And although you sometimes have to learn some C to figure stuff out because it's all you're calling C libraries under the hood, and sometimes you do need to interface with them. Um, it's a great project, and I got to give them a shout out. The Rust 3DS project, they
Oh
made all
wow.
this possible because without them, I know Rust. Rust is a language that I know pretty well and love, but I don't know C, and I couldn't have written the software in C. It's just way too complex for me to do. So yeah, props to them. They're great, really great.
Oh, is it okay? I'm looking at Rust learning language. The Rust C book. I'm
Yeah,
just looking for Rust 3DS.
yes, Rust 3DS,
I'll have to.
great project.
Oh wow, it's a GitHub organization with the. Oh wow.
Yeah, they
See,
have a few libraries under there, and anyone who is interested in making 3DS homebrew and has used Rust, I would certainly encourage you to look into it. It depending on what you're trying to do, it can be a really great way of doing it. If you want to make a game, maybe not, because a lot of the graphics primitives are not really ported across in the same way as they are available for people in C land. But for what I wanted to do, everything I needed was there. I just had to figure out how to call it, and uh, yeah, it's great.
that just makes me do another aside to just the community surrounding the 3DS and the DS. It's just the homebrew community, especially. It's just I've never seen anything like it. I've never, in all my years, I mean, there are some great communities around PC games and things like that, but something about the 3DS homebrew community, I've never, ever seen anything like it. It's, I've talked about this on another show. It's just amazing, y'all. It's just the level of passion and the level of expertise and the level of patience in this community is I've never again unfounded. I've never seen anything like it. Um, and just to know that something like to hear that this Rust thing exists, I'm honestly not surprised, but I'm delighted
Yeah,
because it's like
me
it
too.
just it just uh it just furthers my notion that this community can do just about anything it wants to do once they put their mind to it. Because my lord, they've already done so much. Excuse me. That's amazing. I've heard of the Rust language. Is it its own thing? Is it an offshoot of something like C?
Uh,
I don't really know.
Rust is its own language. It came out of Mozilla, which is the people who
Oh,
make Firefox. It
yeah,
was
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of it was kind of made there originally.
Oh,
It's a kind of a it's kind of a more modern, safer alternative to C and C++. Safer as in it's very easy when writing C to do things which lead to problems. Not to denigrate C at all. C is an amazing thing. It's 50 years old. It was developed in Bell Labs over in the USA 50 years ago, and it's lived on all this time. And it's still like the language that you use for low level game development. You know, other than assembler, which is very rare these days. But it's an amazing thing. See, no shade to throw on it, but it's 50 years old. We've got much more complex systems these days, and it's very easy to write C code which you know doesn't free some memory or tries to free memory twice. And these are both things in computer science that are actually really bad. And Rust has has a mission which is to allow you to do all those things you could do in C, but to wrap them up in a much more stringent container that forces you to observe certain practices and forces you to do certain things to keep the program safer, and without losing performance. Because you can get safer code using JavaScript or something like that, but JavaScript is fundamentally going to be very slow in many cases to compared to something like C. So yeah, Rust is a now a very popular language. It's becoming very widely used, and it's a lot of stuff is getting written in Rust now. Has a reputation for being difficult to use, but I don't think that's true. I just think it has a learning curve. And yeah, it's been has good compatibility with C, and that's what the Rust 3DS project give you. Really, they give you a compatibility layer with C that allows Rust developers to hook into all the C stuff, which is available from people like DevKit Pro. Because without that, you'd have to basically figure out how to do it yourself, and that's really hard. So in most cases, I could just use the wrappers that Rust 3DS had provided to do things like look at the network or read files or things like that. There are cases where I did have to basically just dig into the C layer, which is kind of exposed through Rust 3DS in a way. But I didn't have to do that too much. And where I don't have to do that, it's better because you can write code which is much more easy to read and understand for a Rust developer, and is usually going to be safer to use. So yeah, that's Rust. I'm probably talking about Rust too much, but
No,
that's something I
no,
also evangelize. I think Rust is a wonderful thing.
no. These are the kind of weeds we want to get lost in. This is the kind of nuts and bolts I want to hear about, and I hope our listeners want to hear about too, because I find, I mean, I can't program to save my life. I have tried, and my brain just can't make the connections necessary to do programming. I've tried multiple times. I just, but I'm also fascinated by one, the languages themselves and people who can do it, you know? So, excuse me, it's great that you can do it. And you found a language that seems to have, I guess I would call them guardrails, safeguards to make
Yeah, yeah,
breaking more difficult,
yeah.
which is wonderful in this modern era. Um, and the fact that a community has come together to help port this burgeoning, growing language that more and more people are using to a someone called dead console. I don't think it's dead, but I mean, they're not making any more of these things. And yet the community that makes these like Rust and Cloudpoint and Checkpoint are thriving
Mhm.
because of things like this. So that's what I want to celebrate. That's one of the things I want to celebrate is the people doing all this, the people bringing all this together. It's just marvelous, magical. So I love that this exists. And I love hearing you talk about it because you can hear your passion about it. And that's another thing I want to share is people's passion. This community, the 3DS, brings out so many passionate people. It brings out so many talented people to bring what they have to the party. And it's just lovely to see all that coalesce into supporting this not ancient, but older machine that can do so much. I just learned through another interview it's got 3 CPUs. I didn't know that. You know, it's
Yeah.
it's just, and I want to talk to you something about that because you said programming for this can be challenging.
Mhm.
In your view, what are the challenges um, in regards to making programs, homebrew programs for the 3DS?
That's a great question. Um, I mean, fundamentally, it's any homebrew that you do is always going to be running on undocumented hardware. There are certainly going to be Nintendo manuals and
Oh,
documentation on this, but none of that's available to us. We don't have that. That's all hidden. The dev kits that they provided to people, they're certainly under NDA, and you will never find one of those. And certainly, you would never use it if you did, because you'd definitely be in very sticky legal territory if you did that.
oh boy.
So, everything that we do is based on people reverse engineering this stuff and providing a like a clean room implementation of the same thing, which is a clean room implementation is kind of like a version that's been made just based on reverse engineering, no access to proprietary or copyrighted information. So we're using all of that stuff, and a lot of this stuff is just really esoteric. It's hard to understand. It it does things that appear to be weird, and you don't really know why because all the context is gone. Like, there might be a like a well, like when you write a 3DS save, there's a sort of anti-copying mechanism built into the saves, and you have to basically clear it. And I don't know why you do it the way you do it, but you do, and somebody had to figure that out. But learning those quirks is one of the challenges here, because something might not work and you don't know why, and you eventually go on this bug hunt and happen across something, and eventually it starts working. So all those kind of things, even honestly, like learning how to just read a save on the system, and pull the right information out of the save, in a way that was reliable and repeatable, was really challenging. Like actually doing that it took me. There was sort of a 3 or 4 month period at the start of the project where all
Wow.
I did was hack around trying to read a save of whatever game it was I was experimenting with, and writing it out again, and that took quite a long time. Once I'd done that, the rest of it came much more quickly, because I knew I was onto something, and I could make it. I could kind of put it into. I could take my initial really hacky code and actually write something which was maintainable, and I could have some pride in. To be honest, 'cause a big part of this is something that I enjoy doing, and I take a certain pride in it. So you kind of take that code and make it more usable. But yeah, just that whole save format, and learning about the difference between save data and ext data, and what's a banner and what's an even the way the 3ds kind of lists what software is on the system, and getting the name out of it is much harder than you might expect. You would think something like that would be dead easy. You would think, oh, surely I can call a function and it's going to tell me that's the name of this game. But no, you don't do that. You have to open a file, and you have to do that in a really weird way, and pass it some numbers that you don't necessarily understand the significance of, but you do know work because you found some prior art that does it, and put all that together, and eventually you have something coherent. So they're all the really hard things. Some of the more interesting challenges, um, were I knew would be doable, but I had to figure out how to do them. Stuff like controlling the wireless on the system. Turning the wireless on when it's not on, and turning it off again when you quit, if it was off when you launched it.
Oh, it can
Little
do that?
things like that. Yeah, it does that.
Oh, I didn't
There's
know that. That's great.
yeah, I generally like to run my systems with the wireless turned off if I'm sitting at home or something, because the wireless
Yeah.
is actually one of the big power draws on the system. It'll probably eat 20-30% of your battery life. So I
Yeah.
like to turn it off, but I don't want to have to turn it on all the time. So Cloudpoint will turn it on when it launches, and if it did that, it'll turn it off again when you quit. Um, which is something other software does, but I wanted to do because I think it's a nice little quality of life. So
That is
figuring
really
stuff like
nice.
that
I
out
didn't know it could do
is
that.
cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and there's lots of little things like that. Making sure the system doesn't go to sleep if you're in the middle of a sync and you close the lid or flip the 2DS switch. Again, I wanted to avoid doing that because that could kind of break things, so it doesn't go to sleep in the middle of it. Lots of little things like that, which make up a small amount of the software in the grand scheme of things, but they're really important for delivering something to people which they can trust and which works well. Because software which you release and it isn't to a basic minimum quality bar, I'm just not into that. Like, I think it's a great way for people to not use your software. Um,
Yeah.
we see it a lot these days. There's a big there's a big um, movement of what we call vibe coding, which is maybe a term you've heard.
Oh
This
my
idea
God.
that you can use
On on
AI
the
to do stuff for you,
it's funny
and
on
that
the GT
that can be a
uh,
pain.
on the GBA temp forums, you'll see like, I made this thing. Come join my Discord server for it. And everyone's like, no. No, I'm not
Yeah,
joining your Discord for it. You probably vibe coded it. I don't trust you at all. Put it on GitHub if you really want. If you really want legitimacy, you know, that's
yeah,
and that
exactly.
and that's happening more and more. I'm seeing in these communities. It's like you see people vibe coding things. It's like I'm going to be honest. I can't stand LLMs. The whole concept of vibe coding makes me want to vomit. To be perfectly honest, I mean I get it. But at the same time, like, well, what if someone made a great game that they can't program? Then they maybe it's not going to be a great game. It's not a great game. How can it be a great game if you can't genuinely make a game yourself? You know. So
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I don't know how other people feel about this, but I can't stand LLMs. I can't stand them. I have to use them for work now, and I
yeah, me
hate it.
too.
I hate it so much. But I also hate to admit that for some things it does save time. Like I don't want to write for I don't want to write 4900 page descriptions for Google. I really don't. So thank you for that, I guess. But people doing creative things like games and art and things, no, stop it. It
Yeah,
just makes me it,
I try and take a balanced view with this. Like I also like deep down, I don't really like LLMs. I have issues with them with the ethics of it. You know, these things are
mhm.
fundamentally trained on human output being sold back to us, which I find distasteful. I
Oh
think there's
God, yeah.
a massive issue with the climate, which these things are not helping. Here in the UK, it's we're in it. All the grass is brown. It's
I know.
35, 40 degrees, and that's not normal here. And I will resist the temptation to use this as kind of like a pedestal to kind of push my own views on this, because it's probably not the time or place. But I do think that we cannot ignore the output of any power hungry initiative, and that includes LLM. So I have
Oh
issues there.
God.
I try and take a
Oh
balanced
yeah.
view, but yeah, when it comes to software, I think they are useful. And full disclosure here, I do use LLM sometimes for software dev. It's very hard not to these days. And
Yeah.
I like to keep it minimal. I don't run agents on my computer. I don't, there's no code in Cloudpoint which is, me writing a prompt and getting it to write the code. That's not how it's done. But I certainly do sometimes go to something like Claude and say, hey, how secure is a sort of 128-bit number? These are the sorts of questions you have to ask yourself sometimes in software, and I will use it to help me answer that question in the same way I
And
would
I think
search
that
Google to answer things, and that
and
I'm okay with that.
I
But
think that's
there's a
okay if
limit.
you're using it for mundane information searching like that.
Mm,
I think that's fine because it's just a different way to parse. It's just a different search engine in that regard. And it just parses and gives you the information a little differently than the 10 blue links or whatever.
mm.
But when you're using it to create art or music or books, it's like, no, that's not. Stop.
Yeah,
No,
that's not for me.
no,
I
God,
like I
no.
say, I try and take a balanced view, and I will generally resist the urge to kind of fight a holy war on this, because I found that, I guess, as I've
Uh,
got older, I try and see everybody's viewpoint, and I try and take a balanced view, and I'm less vehemently opinionated than I once was, perhaps. But
oh,
I am
I'm the
also
opposite.
entitled. I think a lot
I'm
of
the
people are, but
opposite. I can.
I
Go ahead. Sorry.
I think I guess I'm wary of like denigrating anybody who does choose to use these tools in the way they see fit. I'm also free not to read your AI written book, or watch your AI written movie, or play
Yeah.
your AI developed game, or certainly listen to your AI developed music. That To misquote Hayao Miyazaki, the wonderful Japanese director and artist, um, AI is an affront to life itself, and it's I kind of believe that. Um, and try
Yeah.
and remember it, while also letting other people do what they want to do and letting the chips fall where they may. And if other people want to use LLMs to make software, that's fine. I do think that if you're vibe coding, to bring this full circle, if you're
Yeah.
vibe coding your software, I am doubtful that you are, if you're inexperienced, going to be aware of the sorts of things that you need to do to take the software to kind of like a minimum level of quality. And
Yeah.
if you release it in that state, you will essentially hurt your chances of reaching an audience who might otherwise like your software. And so that's kind of why it was important for me to make sure that, turning on the Wi-Fi at the right time worked, and make sure that not sleeping when you shut the lid worked, and making sure that if something goes wrong, it can recover. Like a backup is taken whenever you download a save. It backs it up first. You can actually
Yeah.
turn that off if you want to, because it takes a while, believe it or not. It's one of the slowest things in the system is backing up your
Oh.
save before you overwrite it. But it does those sorts of things, and these are the things that I think you may lose if you go to Claude and say, "Hey, Claude, write me a sync tool and make no mistakes." So
Yeah. Good luck with that.
yeah.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate that you have. I don't know if mellowed is the right word, but you've become more open to some things. I am the opposite in some. I'm very much that I want everyone to have a basic, quality of life, and I want everyone to like have access to healthcare and everything. And I think things like LLMs are the complete antithesis of the socialist Star Trek laden future that I want. So I'm I'm and for me, because I know so many game developers and I know so many people who want to get into voice acting and whatnot, it's just really gotten personal
Mm,
because I see, people directly affected by these problems. And so it just very much frustrates me. I wish that I guess if you're going to vibe code something, what I would say is please just disclose it. Please
mhm.
just say you vibe coded it. No one does. No one does. No one's like, "Hey, I made this thing." No, you didn't. But let's be honest, you made nothing. But but I think if you told people that, "Hey, I vibe coded this," I think I honestly think you'd probably get more respect because you admitted it rather than tried to
You
hide it.
absolutely do. You absolutely do. We see
Yeah.
this on programming on forums like the Rust subreddit. There are many people pop up in there and say, "Hey," when you can detect the LLM written posts in a heartbeat because they have a very particular style that is sort of
Mhm.
in the uncanny valley that I personally find quite off-putting.
God, yeah.
But people use these tools for writing documentation. I absolutely don't, because I like to write myself. I like the humanity of it. But you can detect the LLM written posts immediately, and people descend on them and say, like, get in the sea. Like, we don't want to we don't want to hear this. But if people turn up and say, "Hey, I vibe coded this," you will at least start from a baseline of common understanding, and you can go from there, and
And
find the common ground.
yeah, I think if you say that, you're also saying that, look, I'm inexperienced. I vibe coded this. I could use help to make it better. I could use, some advice. Like if you come at it from a place of instead of I made this thing, like, hey, I asked AI to make this thing because I want to learn, help me learn beyond what AI has told me. I think that's fine.
Hmm.
I think that's fine. But not a lot of people do that. Not a lot of
No,
people do that.
they
So
don't.
I do have a question about Cloudpoint specifically because I
Yeah.
have it up and running on my system here. What? It crashed. There it goes. Um, s-
It crashed?
so
Surely not.
it did. It just stopped working. Buddy, what
Oh dear.
are you doing? Oh, there it goes. Just took a moment.
Okay.
Um, and now I mean it. I loaded it. It went back to the home screen. I loaded it again. Anyway, so I have a question about virtual console games.
Yes.
Um, is that a thing? Because I noticed that I think on here there might be some of them that I have on my system.
Yes.
I think Pokemon Yellow version, for example, I think is a for example, I believe is a virtual console game. Tetris DX is a virtual console game. So it does see some virtual console games, but I've got a lot of Pokemon ROM hacks on this thing,
Hmm.
and it doesn't see those. Whereas
Yes.
Checkpoint does. So this is not a criticism.
Oh
I'm
no, this is a
asking.
good point.
I'm not. This is not a criticism. I'm bringing it up because I want to ask if that's something you're aware of. Is that something you're working on? That sort of thing. Because I would love to see that. I would love to be able to sync my Pokemon up Unbound save between my machines. Um,
Yes.
but I wanted to ask about that.
This is a great question. I'm glad you've asked this. Um, so the long and the short of it is that virtual console games in general will show up in Cloudpoint just fine because they basically appear to the system as 3DS games. They run in an emulator in within the 3DS runs an actual emulator and and it's presented to the system as a game. It has a title ID, it has a save archive, everything works as it normally does. You're off to the races, no problem. So, Super Nintendo games or original Game Boy games, things like that, they work. They always have. Um, the games that you're referring to are Game Boy Advance games. So the Game Boy Advance support on 3DS is a bit anomalous because the 3DS contains the hardware from a DS because it's backwards compatible. There's no emulation there. It actually contains the hardware. One of the CPUs of the 3 or 4 that you mentioned is actually the CPU that's in a GBA, and that means that the system can run those GBA games using that CPU. But of course, the 3DS doesn't have a cart slot that supports GBA, so the only way that you ever get GBA games on a 3DS is via Virtual Console. And when a Virtual Console game is a GBA game, they are run in a very different way. They're not emulated the same way that the other games are. They are actually running on original hardware, and the saves
Oh,
are totally different to a normal game as well. They
oh,
I don't think they're written to the SD card. I think they're actually on the console's NAND, on the built-in
yeah,
chip.
yeah. They actually are
Um,
because I had because I wanted to get a save from Pokemon Unbound. I had to go into God Mode 9
mm,
um, because the save from Checkpoint didn't work for some reason when I put it on the DSi. But I went into God mode and dumped the virtual NAND, I think it was
mhm.
called,
Yeah.
and that save worked. So that was fascinating. I'd never done anything like that before. So yeah, you're right. It's saved in like a virtual part of the NAND,
Yeah.
which is NAND is like system memory.
It
If
is,
you're
yeah.
unaware, and there's very different types. There's several of them, and they're all
Yeah.
over the place. Woo. Uh, it's a fascinating machine with all these nooks and crannies. But yeah, so because it emulates on the hardware and has a different save system, Cloudpoint can't see it yet.
It can't see it yet.
Ah,
And
okay.
Checkpoint recently, and we're talking in the last few weeks at the time of recording, actually brought support. I think Checkpoint 5.0 or 4.0
Yeah, it
brought
did.
support
It
for these
did.
games in.
Which
There's
is it
actually,
was amazing to see. Which is
it
amazing to
was.
see. Yeah.
It was. There was a PR that's been open for literally years, and there's been a flurry of activity on Checkpoint in the last few weeks. They've clearly, had a lot of effort thrown at it, and lots of good support available to them. Well, I say them. I think it's one guy who pretty much does most of the work. Like credit to him, um, credit to them. Um, so yeah, that PR got merged, and I have looked at that PR, and I will certainly be using that to figure out how to do it myself because it's a really useful PR. So yes, I will be. It's one of my top priority things actually get support for these games into Cloudpoint, and I want them just to show up on the title list, same as anything else. And I want the save to get synced automatically on an auto sync like everything else. Um, but the actual mechanics of doing it are a bit different. You have to go and grab
Mm.
the save out of the NAND. You have to um, do the rest of the stuff that Cloudpoint already does, probably won't be very different. But then writing it back again, the write is also done in a different way. And because it's using the NAND, that's a bit more risky fundamentally. So you need to make sure that everything there is above board and well tested. So it's not something that I'm going to just kind of do without much testing. I mean, I don't really do anything without much testing, but
Set
some
aside
things
five
you
of
can.
set aside 5 of your 3DSs for
Yeah,
testing
yeah. I
this.
may, I may, I may lose one or two to the cause, but it's worth it.
Oh
It's fine.
no. Oh no.
Yeah.
Have you
I
lost any? Have
No,
you lost any?
no. I,
Oh
I,
good.
I haven't. The sorts of things that I'm doing with Cloudpoint. I mean, this is probably a good opportunity to say it. The sorts of things I'm doing with Cloudpoint are pretty safe. We're reading and writing to and from the SD card, using APIs that are available via DevKit Pro. So there's not really any hackery going on there. It's all pretty straightforward. There's barely any code that kind of touches the system outside of that. I'm always keen to avoid doing that. So no, it's I've not lost any yet, and I don't plan to. So we'll see. But if it's going to happen, it'll happen while I'm testing this feature, because this is a tricky one. But I have a plan, and I'm gonna work on it, because I feel that this is one of the last big core features that I'd like to see. Like, if this was there, I would be pretty happy that all 95, 96, 97% of games could be synced via Cloudpoint as you'd expect them to, without really having to understand how any of it works. Because although you and I find it interesting, Brian, many people don't, and that's cool. Like, I understand that completely. If you just want to fire it up and not really understand that, Pokemon, whatever it is for GBA, um, does things very differently. If you don't want to know that, I totally respect that. You you have other things you want to do, and that's cool. So yeah, I don't want people to think about it. And this is, for me, this is one of the last big ones that I don't have in place. It's more important to me than almost anything else. It's more important to me than
Wow.
supporting syncing of things like DS save files that people might have with emulators. That might be a thing that I add, but I don't know if it's a core feature. Whereas I
That'd
think
be
syncing your GBA games is a core feature.
that'd be tricky because the saves for DS games are just unencrypted files in a directory, in a saves directory,
I mean,
usually.
that part of it wouldn't actually be hard, because I mean,
Oh,
to
okay.
to to delve into the internals of this, if you'll indulge me.
Of course, please.
Uh, so the way that Cloudpoint works, I mean, to take a step back, the reason I was able to write all the syncing stuff quite easily, because that stuff was not the hard part. The reason I was able to do that is because over the last 3 years, I guess, I've been sort of writing on and off a Rust library, which is essentially all about synchronizing data across the network. So the use case here really is that you have some folder on a computer that you want to be able to synchronize to other computers efficiently. Um, there are a number of use cases for this. You might use something like this for like a file backup tool, or you might use it to distribute software and update that software across computers. So you keep updating new versions of your application, and the users of that application run an updater, and that updater is able to kind of look at what you've got on your disk and say, hey, these bits of this file have changed, these bits have moved around, these bits have been deleted, whatever it is, and just download the important bits that it needs to over the network, and maybe move some stuff around on the disk that it already has but is in the wrong place. All of that code, which is quite a complex thing, and I originally did to support something I became interested in through my day job, which I probably won't go into too much, but that's what led me on that path. Um, I had all of that in that library, and that's actually something I will open source very soon. But I had all of that, and that means that code could run on like an arbitrary folder on a 3DS very easily. You could say to it, just look for all the like .sav files in this directory and sync them, and Cloudpoint could do that really easily. Um, but the tricky part here, or at least the part that's not as easily solvable without giving it some serious thought, is how you present that in a user interface coherently, because you've kind of got this folder full of random files which don't present much about themselves other than their names. And I would want those to be available as
Uh,
titles, and I'd want them to be handled sensitively, and I wouldn't necessarily want to just kind of like use the name of the file to figure out what it is, because that's fraught with problems itself. So there's a lot of stuff which exists just outside of the core software, which you'd have to solve. So that's where things get a little bit tricky there. I've thought about doing the same thing for your camera roll on your 3DS. In fact, this came up in an issue the other day. Someone posted about it. I kind of thought, well, it might be nice if you could synchronize your photos as well, and then you get all your photos from all your DSs on all your DSs. Um, that'd be easy to do from a code point of view, because it's just synchronizing some files in a well-known directory. CloudPoint could do that with very little work. But then you have to start to think, well, how do I deal with file sizes, and how do I deal with people doing stuff they shouldn't be doing, and how do I deal with people putting files, massive files in here to max out the network transfer, or cause me problems like create denial of service vectors. So these are the sorts of things that start to make a simple idea complex, and this is why I think one of the most important things that you do in any software development, to be honest, but particularly when it's just one of you writing something that you have a passion for, is only committing to stuff that you really think is core and you really think you can do a good job of. Because I don't want to half-ass features out the door. I want to actually do things right. I want to do them by hand. Maybe I could get an LLM to do some of this stuff quicker, probably, but I'm not doing this for, like, I'm not optimizing for speed of delivery, to be honest, Ryan. I'm optimizing for me having fun and me having something that I'm proud of, and me being able to look back at it and say, yeah, I did that and I'm proud of it. And
Yeah,
that's something I can do because it's mine, and I share it with everyone. But I don't have a board to answer to. I don't have shareholder value to maximize. I just have my own whims to indulge. And that's the privilege of open source maintainers, I guess. You can do this stuff if you want to, and I do.
and I do. I'm with you on the do it right rather than do it quickly. I'm with you on. I've always believed. Since we're over an hour, I have one more question before we wrap up. Tell me about self-hosting with Cloudpoint.
Yes, that's another great question. Thank you for asking. So yeah, obviously the by implication there is also the kind of public instance of Cloudpoint, which I run. Excuse me, I just need to have a drink. I've been talking a lot. Okay,
No worries.
so there is a public instance, and if you just run Cloudpoint, excuse me for just 1 second, I need another drink. I have.
No worries. No worries. What you gotta do? Yeah, staying hydrated is very important.
It certainly is. Okay, I think we're back.
No
So yeah,
worries.
there's a public instance which I host. Just runs on a fairly basic server. It doesn't require much because Cloudpoint is a very, very low intensity thing. But I run that, and if you just download Cloudpoint from Universal Updater and just run it, it will synchronize with the public server, and you can share your key with all your other systems, and they'll all use the public server, and everything's fine. And you can do that. Some people prefer to self-host, and that's something we support as well. So you can. This is all documented on the GitHub page, but essentially you can go and for more technical people who might have like a home lab at home, you can run a couple of commands on your home lab, and it will use a system called Docker to kind of run the service that it needs on your home lab, and then you just modify a config file on your Cloudpoint. You modify a config file on your 3DS or each of your 3DSs that you want to use. Just give it the server address of your self-hosted server, and then when you run it, it will connect to that, and it will sync everything
Oh,
to a server that you own. And it's exactly the same as what runs in public. It's the same software. There's nothing special. And some people prefer to do that. And in fact, there's just looking at this now. There's 1.2 thousand downloads of the self-hosted server over its life.
wow.
So
That's great.
it's more than I expected. Whether that is a true number, I haven't investigated. Um, for all I know, a bot farm is downloading it 1,000 times a day, but I doubt it. It's probably broadly accurate. So I think there's about 1,000 people who self-hosted it, and
That's
not
awesome.
getting many bug reports, so that's pretty good. And then yeah, you add to that the sort of um, few thousand people using the public instance, and there's certainly a few of these out there. But yeah, self-hosting is really easy to do. Look on the GitHub, you'll figure out how to do it, and if you have any issues with it, just drop a line in the GitHub issues, and we can sort you out. And yeah, you then own your own data, and you can control it. I should be transparent here. The data that you will have in your system sitting in a database will not make much sense to you on its own. It's not like you have all your games sort of visible in a folder that you can go in and kind of access via timestamp and just copy around. That isn't how Cloudpoint works. It's it's like a deduplicated system. I kind of touched on this before. So when you synchronize your games, it will only upload or download parts of saves that have actually changed, which is one of the reasons it's pretty quick. I mean, you I guess I only notice it because I work on it, but something like Terraria, the first time you upload it, it's uploading a 32 megabyte save, although
Oh,
it is actually deduplicating a lot of that because most of that save is just blank space. So Cloudpoint doesn't really need to upload it in totality. It kind of knows that most of it's the same, and so it just references the bits that are the same each time it needs them. But the first time it does that, it's a bit slower, and then the second time it does it, it'll be way quicker because it's only really downloading changes. Um, but that means that the format that you get on the self-hosted instance is a database full of information that is not very useful to you. And while I may add a web interface to this at some point that would let you go in and look at your versions and download them and modify them and delete them and stuff, I haven't got there yet, and that's not a priority for me. Um, I may do it,
yeah.
but right now it's just you control the data, but you kind of have to accept that it's not actually that usable to you outside of Cloudpoint
Which
at
is
this point.
probably good for safety and security also.
Probably. I would say that, if you are interested in long-term preservation of your saves on a server, what I would recommend most people do is use Checkpoint. I've got a great amount of respect for Checkpoint. I think it's great software. That's you can tell. I mean, I think it's great, and I kind of reference its name in the name of Cloudpoint. Um, I hope they don't mind. I did ask them and I didn't hear back, but I haven't
Yeah,
heard anything to the contrary yet. So
yeah.
hopefully they're fine with that. It's just a little wink, really. But they using Checkpoint to actually create long-term archives of saves is absolutely what I'd recommend you do. In the latest version of
Hmm.
Checkpoint, you can actually upload your saves straight to something like Google Cloud or a WebDAV server that you own. They added this recently. They added a scripts feature. They've been rolling out tons of features this week. And this is one of them. So if you want to just dump your stuff on a server, Checkpoint will let you do that really easily. And although it's a different use case, Checkpoint will not help you if you want to get all your saves on all your consoles all the time. It's not really built for that. Cloudpoint is, and so I think for that use case, I would personally keep using Cloudpoint. But if you want to just take a dump of your saves every so often, Checkpoint is great for that. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't try and replace that functionality
No, you
myself.
should do both,
I'll keep
folks.
using it. Yeah, do
Yeah, you
both.
should absolutely do both. For like we said, two is one is none, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Speaking of the
true.
GitHub, I wanted to point something out real quick, and I lied. I did have one more question, but I just noticed this today on the GitHub under the best practice thing. When you use CloudPoint, my friends, there's a user.key file on your 3DS's SD card. Back that up. Seriously, back that up on like whatever, Dropbox, Mega, whatever you use. Back that up. That's like, that's your key. That's your literal key to
It
your
is.
CloudPoint stuff. So be sure to back that up, or else if something happens, it's all gone. It's just, you can't do nothing. So
Yeah,
be sure to back that up.
that is a great shout out, Brian. If you lose that, I cannot help you.
Yeah.
There is no way. I mean, I don't. This is a good opportunity for me to say I don't keep any information about you. Like on the public instance, even on the private instance, it's the same. But I don't keep email addresses. I don't ask them. I don't want for them. If you gave me them, I would delete them. I don't keep email addresses. I don't log IPs. I don't do any of this stuff because I do not want any personal information. Because the moment you start dealing with personal information, everything gets so complicated and difficult and painful. So I just don't do it. And I don't know who is behind each of these user keys. And I have once tried to help somebody who lost their key by sort of saying, well, which games did you have? Let's see if we can work out which key is yours. We couldn't do it reliably because they couldn't tell me for sure what they had. And so I at that point, I adopted a policy here that if you lose your key, I'm really sorry, but I cannot help you. So please back it up,
Yeah.
back it up once, and it's gone. And the same key is on all your 3DSs. So if you've got 5 systems and you've synced your key with all of them with the
Oh,
with
okay.
the key sharing system, that key is on all of them. So it's the same key, but so you have kind of duplication of keys there. So that helps you. But yeah, just take a copy of the user.key. It's in slash 3ds slash cloudpoint user.key. just copy that, put it somewhere, and
Yes.
that's what you need to do. It will never change. Just copy it.
Put
Please.
that in bold on your site. Make that whole line, make that whole
Yeah,
bullet point bold so people don't miss it. Because I missed it.
absolutely.
I only
Okay,
noticed it
fine.
this morning. And so I like I know because I was doing research for this show like a hour or two before, and I'm going through I'm going through the GitHub, and I saw that. I'm like, oh, I haven't done that. So I didn't know they were the same. So I backed up the one on my 3DS and my 2DS. I didn't know they were the same. But
Yes.
still, two is one and one is none, so that's fine. But yeah, back up your user key, folks. Very important. And my last question, you've touched on this quite a bit. You've touched on what you'd like to see uh, come to Cloudpoint, but is there anything you haven't touched on that you'd like to, that you hope is in Cloudpoint's future?
That's a good question. Because
you did cover a lot. You covered the website, you covered the DS saves, the GBA saves. You covered a bunch, but I just wanted, and you have a roadmap here. Oh yeah, one of the things you have in your roadmap is time travel.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point. This is thank you, Brian. So, by time travel, I'm kind of referring here to a little bit more control over what you can do on the device with your save. So, at the moment, the only thing that is supported is the auto syncing, which 99% of the time is what you want and works perfectly. So that's where you basically say sync my games, and it will figure out, well, have you played it on this console but not elsewhere? If so, I'll upload it. Have you played it elsewhere but not here? If so, I'll download it. So it's pretty, and if you played it on two different places, it's going to conflict and tell you to fix it. So it's a pretty basic thing that normally you don't need to care about. But there are occasions where you might want to, say, actually, I would really want to go back to the save that I synced 2 weeks ago. Um, or maybe, I really want to force it to sync the save that I've got on the system now because for whatever reason I don't trust that it's on the server. That should never actually happen, but it's a contrived example. So time travel would be where you can basically go and pick a game and view all of the saves that you have for it on the server and choose to restore a particular one of them onto your system. I would like to add that feature because I think that it's useful, and it
Yeah,
it also it it allows recovery from situations that bugs could cause
yeah,
without needing to contact me and get me to sort of do forensics on your saves, which I might not be able to do anyway.
yeah.
So it allows self recovery.
A lot of the cloud services like Dropbox, for example, have versioning where like if you have a file and you uploaded it, it's something wrong with it. They have like the last three versions of it or whatever.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff is very important, and that would be a lovely thing to have. So there's so much coming for CloudPoint, and so much is being added to Checkpoint that I'm wondering, what will you add to CloudPoint as a result of that too? Um, so it's wonderful. It's just wonderful. Yeah, we're well over an hour now. We should wrap this. Oh my
Yes.
Lord. dwalker, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on and taking the time. And in your evening, it is time is it there now? 8:30?
No, it's now 6:27 p.m.
6:30. Okay, that's not too late. Okay, I guess. But still, it's still like your evening. So I appreciate you taking time out of your evening to talk about all this because this has been a lovely conversation. And I just find this stuff fascinating, even though I can't do it myself. I love getting in the weeds of stuff like this. I love it. And you've been great. So
That's very kind, Brian. I wanted to thank you for all you've been doing and for inviting me on. It's 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 lovely to be able to talk about this stuff because I don't really talk about this stuff very much. My friends, my family aren't really into this stuff. So it's nice to be able to wax lyrical for an hour and a half and kind of geek out on
almost an
it
hour.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're
I
doing.
hope
We're geeking out. That's exactly
we
what we're
are.
doing is we're geeking out. Yes.
But I like to do that. So I wanted to thank you for that. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to listening to this myself because I guarantee you I will, and I will make my family listen to it too. Although I might mute the part where I talk about how many 3DSs I own, just in case my wife has miscounted. We'll see.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Doing this is a joy. I'm really loving it. And I want to thank everyone who's listened, who's commented and everything. And if you have any suggestions? I've gotten many suggestions for other people to interview. If you have someone you'd like me to reach out to interview, please let me know in the comments, either here on the website or on YouTube or whatever. I'm trying to. This is not just a celebration of the DS and the 3DS, but the people keeping it going, like dwalker here. So I would love to have more people on. But thank you for listening. Please take care of your systems and happy gaming. Take care, everybody.